I perched on a cloud, watching the forest below me. Despite being the shortest section this side of pasture, it nearly reached out to the horizon. I expected about a minute of flying, which was twice as long as I would have liked. Any one of those trees could hide an ambush. In fact, so could the clouds. My eyes traced the route through the cumuluses. If I could speed across the sky, perhaps I could deny anything hiding in the forest a chance to react. As crazy as it sounded, flying right out in the open was probably my best bet. Crouching low, I prepared for a speed launch. That's when that soulless Fang came blasting out of the forest canopy, the branches crumpling noisily under its power. I barely had time to meet its empty eyes before it was upon me. Sheer reflex threw me to the side, and I thumped off the cloud. I swore I could feel the air rend the hair from my coat as the bird, which was easily as big as my head, obliterated the cloud with its spear-like beak. We zipped past each other. A rancid smell latched onto my muzzle, and I couldn't help but gag. Rotting flesh, stained bone, and blood-caked feathers were the order of the day. I had hardly regained control when an unholy screech filled the air. I looked up to find the bird zombie Fang already coming back my way. The fire of adrenaline washed over my body, and I was off. I dove hard, pulling up just before the canopy. I flapped with all my might, but out of the corner of my eye, I could see the zombie bird was still gaining on me. I considered turning to fight, but instantly rejected it. Speed like that would have destroyed me in an open-air combat. I decided I would have to lose it in the forest, to turn the battle into a contest of dexterity. A dangerous prospect, but I wasn't in any position to be picky. I made for the tallest trees, weaving around them as I searched desperately for a suitable hole. But just as I spotted a large enough break, something crashed into my right hind leg with the force of a runaway cart. I barely had a chance to scream before I was spiraling down, in unforgivable branches raking across my body. The world was a whirlwind of leaves, pain, and darkness. The last thing I remembered was the faint taste of copper. Pop, pop, crack. The sounds echoed through the blackness around me, weaving in and out of existence. The unmistakable scent of smoke touched my nostrils, and my brain jolted. My body, not so much. The best I could manage was feebly pawing my forehooves through the air. They were raw and tight, and though my muscles had become a wad of tangled yarn. In fact, the rest of my body felt the same way, especially my back right leg. Where am I? What happened? Then it all came spilling back. The crash, the chase, it. I shuddered. At least it was gone and I was still alive. Or, I thought I was, anyway. If I was, I needed to get out of the forest before that changed. I only hoped the smoke was from some pony's campsite, and not the start of a forest fire. Wishful thinking, I know. But when a mare's a little beat up, she hopes for a break or two. With a groan, I stretched myself just enough to get up to my hooves on the ground. What I found wasn't the grittiness of dirt, but soft and stingy. Grass? Undergrowth? My eyelids were each as heavy as boulders, and I grunted as I struggled to heave them open. The world was a blur, a giant smear of brown several feet in front of me. After a complex ritual of squinting and blinking, I realized I was staring at a wall made of rough-hewn logs that were nonetheless stacked in perfect alignment. Wherever I was, it wasn't pasture. Pop. My eyes darted to the right, and I scrambled into a sitting position. Pain spread through my muscles like thunderhead discharge, and I just about toppled over backwards. As I regained my balance, I caught a fireplace out of the corner of my eyes. Its maw was filled with vibrant tongues dancing over a fresh log. Fear melted away under the welcome of warmth. As it turns out, a mare does catch a break every now and then. With the thought of being cooked alive no longer in the forefront of my mind, my eyes fell upon a figure tending the fire. She was an older unicorn, her coat a soothing ivory, though a simple robe covered the back of her head. Raven locks fell over one eye, while the other fixed me with a disconcerting stare. I shrunk back a little, my butt brushed up against the wood. "Oh, stop being such a filly. Some pony would think you've never seen another mare before. Now, stop squirming before you make things worse. You need rest if you want your leg to heal. And before you ask, your wings are fine, you silly Pegasus." She turned her attention to the fireplace. It took a moment to spread my wings, elicting a snort from the other mare. But she otherwise continued to ignore me. They were tender, but best I could tell, nothing was actually broken. While I flexed my feathers, I surveyed the room. By the symmetrical log design, I guessed I must be in one-room cabin. That meant, if things went sour, the door opposite the fire would be my only way out. Not that I was likely to beat the white mare there, anyway. Most of the furniture was concentrated against the far wall. Several bookcases stood side to side, lining the wall with a small library's worth of books. A cabinet, clutching its faded doors against itself, sat to the left of the bookshelves. Next to the cabinet was a gnarled table that looked positively ancient. In fact, I was almost certain my father had once sold one that was in better condition to an antique shop. To the credit of this table, it had retained all four of its chairs. A shame they all looked like they'd been dropped off the back of a cart. The center of the table was topped with a vase, a long-dead plant of some kind crammed inside. Faded placemats, glazed in a thick layer of dust, rigged the centerpiece. I looked back at the mare for a few moments, worked up the courage for my question, and asked, "Where am I?" "Why, my cabin, of course." The mare didn't turn her head. I raised an eyebrow. "And where in Equestria is that? And, for that matter, how did I get here?" Her horn lit up, and the cabinet sprung open. A dull gray light guided my scarf and an unsheathed wing blade over to me. I frowned, the heat of embarrassment touching my cheeks. In all the soreness, I hadn't even noticed they were missing. The scarf settled on the floor in front of me, but the blade remained in the air. "This," the mare said. "What?" I furrowed my brow. "It's a weapon favored by the Pegasus and Griffin bandits. Its scent led my sentry right to you. I'm sorry." I winced as the creature screeched through my mind again, but was gone in an instant, replaced by another, growing, roiling horror. "Wait. If that was yours, then you're—" "Yes. The villagers call me the Necromancer." Her voice was completely level. No theatrics, no intimidation, no threats. Just apathy. My hair stood on end. I wrestled with myself, deflecting instinct as it tried to fling me out the door. Then, the Necromancer. No, there was a reason she hadn't killed me yet, and I still had a chance to leverage it. As I pushed the panic away, a thought hit me. She looks nothing like the legend. The Necromancer rose and took a few steps toward me. She wore a frown just as deep as my own. "What's wrong? Not what you expected?" "Well..." The Necromancer rolled her eyes. "Oh, that's right. I forgot to put my skull mask on today. Shall I go get it?" My back hit the wall. What do you want with me?" "Nothing. Other than for you to heal and get out of here." "What?" The creases returned to my brow. There had been something else going on. Some long-term game plan of hers. "You heard me. I have a war to wage, and I don't need innocents getting caught up in it. I frowned. What did the villagers ever do to you? Plenty enough. It's a wonder I still care for the clods. She glared past me. I blinked. No. As much as they think I'm their enemy, I'm not. A fire burned in the Necromancer's eyes, but it wasn't the brash kind I'd seen in Blaze. There was a certain weariness, a sort of final strength that comes out near the end of a protected melee. Her plan began to form in my eyes. The Necromancer wanted to indoctrinate me, make me believe she was protecting pasture from bandits. She'd let me go so I could go vouch for her, to calm the revolt. But a little voice was nagging, prodding at the back of my mind. It didn't make sense. I'm no slouch in combat, but that thing had trounced me like a flailing foal in a schoolyard scrap. If all the Necromancer's zombies wielded such power, Pasture's petty militia wouldn't even stand a chance. And even if the town tried to send out assassins, they couldn't find her, never mind getting past the sleepless super soldiers. Why would any pony who is practically invincible bother with such manipulation? Was it then a game of mental domination? The voice poked me again, nudging a thought to the forefront. The tracks ended, and my train of thought flew off into the void. There was no way she was actually sincere. I mean, I was thinking about a necromancer, defiler of the dead, and mistress of unholy powers. Hell, she even went by the Necromancer. My mind couldn't process it. There had to be something else I was missing. A cornerstone to her grand scheme. Perhaps a calculated move to stay hidden from the watchful eyes of the princesses. I can see you have a lot to think about. If you do get bored, you may take any book from that shelf. The Necromancer pointed at the bookcase nearest to the cabinet. She strode out before I could say another word.